The dead period is about to lift. Let's talk about this. The NCAA recruiting dead period. We have been talking about this a long time. You know my thoughts on how I thought this was extended way too long, and it was irresponsibly done. There was a way to responsibly do this. Be that as it may, it looks like from various reports, this dead period is going to lift at least somewhat at the end of May. So again, this is in a lot of ways a rubber stamp. This is what we expected. When it got extended a couple of 3 weeks ago now, we expected it to expire May 31st, which kind of therein lies my problem with all of this. It's been easy to see coming at every turn, which shows you there's not a lot of day-to-day foresight in this. I know this adage is getting kind of old, but it's just kind of kicking or maybe punting the can down the road. The can's pretty beat up now. But I've said my piece. I've spoken my piece on that. So let's talk about what this means now. And why is this so big? Because you may have looked at the recruiting rankings when we did our National Signing Day show, and you may go look at them right now, and you may say, looks the same as it always does. It doesn't really look like anyone got impacted. No, at the top, the usual suspects didn't get impacted. More on that in a second. So consider the timeline here. It looks like if May 31st is the thawing period, then June and July are going to be open. That will mean at that point, 14 months have gone by with no in-person contact, in-person visits of any kind. That means no coaches have been in homes, no players have been on campus at least to meet with coaches. There have been no camps, therefore there have been no in-person evaluations. And what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean a whole lot for the impact on Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, even Oklahoma. Like those programs were fine. You notice on signing day, Georgia, they were all there. The usual suspects were all there. There are a few major programs conspicuous in their absence, but you probably had to dig a little bit in order to really have that stand out to you. As has been the case with the way COVID has impacted the sport of college football at several different levels, the impact is felt by everyone, but it's very disproportionate. One of the laziest takes, as we've gotten further and further into this thing and hopefully coming out of it now and to somewhat a sense of normalcy in the sporting world, a lot of people have looked at this and said, you can't use COVID as an excuse because everyone's dealt with it. No, 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 no. That's not true. On the surface, it's true. Everyone's had to deal with it. I'm not asking who's dealt with it. I'm asking how people have been impacted by it. Okay, if you got it and I didn't, for example, or I got it and you didn't, we got impacted disproportionately, but we've both lived in a society where we had to deal with it. Well, think about that times like 500 when you're dealing with an organization. It impacts you disproportionately. And the way that it impacts the recruiting world disproportionately is if you've got that big established brand name and you were also able to get a big head start on scouting kids when they were sophomores and juniors, when it came to this 2021 class, it wasn't a big deal for Alabama. I mean, sure, Nick Saban would have liked to have been out on the road. He would have liked to have been in-person evaluating, but Zoom was fine. It worked just fine for them. It worked just fine for Kirby Smart. It worked fine for Ryan Day. They already had the infrastructure for the 2021 class in place. Here's who it hurt. Can you imagine being Mike Norvell at Florida State? Can you imagine coming in and then saying, I'm about to change the culture here at Florida State. This is a gold mine of an opportunity. There's talent all over the place. It's just that the culture's a little bit rotted on the inside, so we got to turn that inside out. But once we do that, and we're going to do it with elite recruiting, once we do that, we'll be good. And then, no, Mike, the world just got turned upside down. And so this is going to be the least of your concerns, relatively speaking, but as it pertains to recruiting, there will be no in-person anything. And none of these kids know you. You haven't gotten your coaching staff in front of any of them, but yet the sport's not going to stop. We're still going to have a recruiting period. We're still going to have a signing day. We're just going to take away every angle that you could possibly navigate to try and salvage a good class. What was Mike Norvell supposed to do? You know, what's like Brian Harsin? I know he's a little bit newer at Auburn, but what were those guys supposed to do? Shane Beamer at South Carolina, like they're just now looking down the tunnel and they see this light. And for Ryan Day, again, at Ohio State, that just means they can return to normal. For Mike Norvell at FSU or for Sark, Steve Sarkisian at Texas, a lot of these new coaches, if you were just hired within the last year, this is going to be the first time that kids have spoken to you in person. The first time kids have gotten on campus, in a lot of cases, period, but especially campus under your watch. It's like you're starting from scratch. And so it's major for Auburn. It's major for South Carolina, Florida State, Michigan State. I mean, think about Mel Tucker. Think about Josh Heupel at Tennessee, where there's already an uphill battle on several fronts. This was just going to be another one. So we get this out of the way. And again, you notice there's not really a lot of shock in my tone. It was not a big deal. This was viewed as a formality, kind of a rubber stamp. But yet we get to June and July, there is, yeah, we don't believe in off seasons anyway around here, but for coaches, normally if you get to that June, July period where it's post-spring, it's pre-media days, this is when you head to the lake. This is when you head down to Destin or wherever you go for your vacation. Not this year. It doesn't look like that's the case this year. Now, the other thing to watch as we wrap this up is how does it evolve immediately? So on June 1st, what am I allowed to do? Am I allowed to have full in-person camps? I don't think that's going to be the case. I saw Pete Thamel of Yahoo reporting that's probably not going to be the case. What you'll probably have is, though, the ability to organize one-on-one workouts. I think that's probably, you get a lot of kids on campus and you just have to spread them out so you don't have huge position groups around, which is semantics at this point because you're able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. But this is a big deal for the 2022 kids, obviously. Just like the major programs didn't hurt, the major kids didn't hurt. If you had a 4 or 5-star rating next to your name, you didn't go without offers that you wouldn't have gotten anyway. My question and my beef has been, what would happen if we had a Josh Jacobs in the 2021 class? Josh Jacobs went on to be an All-American at Alabama, first-round draft pick, but he didn't get discovered until really, really late into his senior year. What would have happened if there was a Josh? In fact, for all we know, there was a Josh Jacobs or 2 or 5 on the trail last year. We didn't even know about him. They fell through the cracks. What are they supposed to do? Send their tape out? There is no tape. What are they supposed to do? Go take a visit in January? They can't go anywhere. They can't do an in-person evaluation. So those are the kids who fell through the cracks. Watch the JUCO ranks, watch the transfer portal, and then watch how active things get on the traditional recruiting trail when things finally thaw out in June and July.